Welcome to Podnutz Daily for January 14th, 2009, episode number 136. Power supply. Had a computer was giving us some problems today. It was an eMachines. They're usually pretty good for giving us some problems. And what's happening with this machine, when we hit the power button, you'd hear the fan start up, go on high speed, no video, no hard drive activity, nothing. But funny thing about this one was when you press the power button in and held it for 5 seconds to shut the system down and let go, it would reboot again. So it was definitely having some power issues. Usually that means a fried motherboard in my book. This person was having RAM trouble though. So first thing we decided to do, just to rule out everything else, is take out the RAM and switch out the RAM, or switch up the slots of the RAM, reseat it. Just make sure you have a good stick of RAM in there and it's seated properly. And then just because I noticed one thing that I have a little bit of a problem with, and that is when you have a motherboard that has a 24-pin power connector on it, and you're using a 20-pin power supply to power it. I don't know if I have like scientific proof of this, but it would seem logical that if it's prompting you for 24 pins, you should use a 24-pin power supply if you want it to run stably. Well, we switched out the 20-pin power supply, hooked up a 24-pin, and it did. We did get the startup screen, the big E when you turn on eMachines computer. We got the big E screen, the BIOS screen, but it got a little stuck after that. I've also had experience, and we had to leave. We were running out the door, so we didn't get to mess around with it too much after that. But I have had experience where that E screen stays up for like a minute before it actually goes to the next step and posts. So maybe we just had to let it go for a while. Maybe it was adjusting or trying to read the BIOS or something like that. So we'll figure that out tomorrow. But we did have improvement. I just wanted to make known we did have improvement by changing the power supply and using a 24-pin power supply on a 24-pin motherboard. Just something to think about if you're troubleshooting. Another thing too, I don't know if you guys have ever come across this, where you start up a computer, you see the boot up screen, you see the Windows screen, and then all of a sudden the screen goes black. Your monitor goes into like sleep mode and says the display mode isn't supported or cannot display these graphics options or whatever, how it says it. Usually that means like your computer is set for a resolution that your monitor can't display. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the operating system or anything else, except that somehow those settings got changed, or you're trying a new monitor and the settings are set for a different monitor. What you can do is when you boot up, reboot the computer, boot up and hit F8 at the safe mode screen. Instead of going into safe mode though, go into VGA mode. VGA mode brings it down like a low resolution that almost every monitor can, any VGA monitor can show. This way you go into VGA mode, you could switch the resolution from inside there, and then you'll be okay. This actually happened when I was setting up my media center PC. By the way, Best Buy selling a 42-inch plasma TV for like $550, Dynex. That's like the Best Buy home brand. But I believe that LG or Samsung or somebody actually makes the Dynex panel, so it might be decent TV. I just caught a glimpse of that. Very tempting, because I want to get a nice TV for my media center. It doesn't have to be real nice. And if I could buy a Samsung for $1,100 or a Dynex for $550 for the same screen. And though it is a plasma, it's not LCD. I like the way the colors pop on a plasma TV. But I'm getting off the subject. Where are we going here? Okay. A couple days ago, a guy brought in the dirtiest computer I think I've ever seen. I was afraid to open it up, but you could just tell how bad this thing was going to be on the inside. It had so much dust, like bulging out of like the floppy disk slot on the front of the computer. Just all kinds of stains all over this thing. It was an old compact desktop. And the thing was, what was it doing? Oh, it would power on, but there would be no video. And I could have opened it up and checked out what was going inside, but I just had come in and just got my breakfast, and I said I tried everything I could to get the customer to not want to leave that computer with me and me to do the job. There's just some systems that are just so gross you don't even want to take the money to do the job. That was one of them. The worst system I've ever seen. Came in yesterday morning. I think it really was a motherboard problem, though, but I wasn't about to open a thing to find out. You get picky after a while if you do this long enough, and you just say, I don't think I'm going to work on that machine ever in my life. Okay, one machine I do want to talk about, and this machine is one of the reasons why I didn't have a show yesterday. It just stressed me out beyond belief. there's this little tiny Sony Vaio machine I've bought 2 motherboards for now. The first one didn't work, so I thought. The second one did work. What was happening with this machine is I patched it all up, I got it working, I powered it on, everything seemed fine. The customer would take it, and every time he would move it the slightest little bit, it would blue screen. So like if he's sitting down, for example, and he has it on his lap and he stands up, it would blue screen. Sometimes it would reboot itself too, I noticed, without doing anything to it. But for the most part, if you hit the power button, turn it on, and just let it sit, it would be fine. So I thought there was a loose connection in there somewhere. I probably put about 15 hours in on this machine. Throughout the last 2 weeks, I've been working on it on and off. I've probably taken it apart about the same amount of time, 15 times. And what we found out today was I finally, like, because I took it apart so many times, I realized that there's no loose cable in there. That's not the problem. It's either something faulty on the motherboard or something, but there's no loose cables in there. There's no metal touching metal in there. And what it turned out to be was I finally ran mem test on the Ultimate Boot CD, and it failed miserably on a mem test. Now, this particular motherboard has embedded RAM. The RAM is embedded into the motherboard. It's a tiny little Sony Vaio, and it has a small little stick of additional RAM. Well, I took the small little stick of additional RAM off, did mem test, and it failed miserably. So the RAM that was bad is the embedded RAM. There's nothing you could do for that. You can't disable it. So, not that I know of. So I basically had to use another motherboard. Well, the second motherboard I bought for this machine I thought was bad, but it turns out the second motherboard wasn't bad, so I put the second motherboard, ditched the third motherboard. The RAM was okay on it, got everything up and running, and that was actually the problem. It was a bad RAM embedded into the motherboard. So I think we're okay now with that. Hopefully, I never want to see that computer ever again. Funny thing is, after I got that computer fixed and put the second motherboard in and everything was running fine, the absolute next computer that I had on my list to work on was an identical looking Sony Vaio, a newer model, but identical. It was like the newer model, newer design of the older model, same layout, same everything. This one had a bad motherboard as well. I called the customer. I said, look, it's got a bad motherboard. I recommend you call Sony and let them handle it. And I just took the money for the diagnostic charge. I do not, maybe in a couple of weeks or months, I'll look at do another Sony Vaio laptop motherboard job again. But for now, I'm done with Vaios. They have given me more grief than you could possibly imagine. Oh, God, just bad news today, it looks like, on the notes here. I'm not even going to read this other thing. It's even worse news. Let's see. I have no emails also, no voicemails. So I think it's going to be a short show today, guys. Yeah, I'm reading the chat room now.